Why is it that Ilian and Dye is no longer the flavour of the topic of the cartel discussion this week in Game Week 7, and yet almost all of them bought him in on wildcard in Game Week 6? Today, I break down my top transfer tips ahead of Game Week 7 and delve deeper into these issues and the players that are potentially being overlooked and why potentially they are being overlooked. If you are enjoying this content, you know what you need to do. You need to smash a like on the video. You need to leave us a comment with what you're planning to do this week and whether you're actually planning to make any moves or not. I've also got you covered if you've got a wildcard draft, if you're wildcarding this week, which seems a bit of a weird week to wildcard before the international break. I've also got a free hit draft covered later in the video as well. And if you haven't already smashed that subscribe button, please consider doing so. We're on the march to 4K subs. Let's continue that hot streak. And with that being said, ladies and gents, let's get into it. So your questions for Game Week 7, look, there's a few places to start, and if you haven't already, should you consider selling Mo Salah? The answer is that I'm surprised it's probably taking you this long to get to this realization. I mean, the cartel were very slow to it. They only realized by Game Week 6. I realized this from the very beginning of the season that Salah was not the player that he was. And based on the last 10 weeks we saw last season, there was no way he was ever going to be worth 14.5 million. The only miraculous thing at the moment is that he hasn't yet dropped in price, which I still don't quite understand. But then again, maybe whoever's pressing the button for drop price, maybe they still have him in their team, hoping he comes good, because that's the only thing, an explanation I can come up for that one. Now, why are the cartel telling us Gabriel is the best Arsenal player to buy this week? Well, I can tell you why. It's because they all went there in Game Week 6 and Gabriel miraculously got a goal. Now, if he hadn't have got a goal last week, I dare say they would not be saying that he is the best Arsenal player to buy this week, because I think there are better ones. And I'm going to look better into this issue later on in the video, because I actually don't think Gabriel is the best player to buy. I think he's the best player to buy if you want to protect your rank, but I think there's better Arsenal defenders that you can buy, potentially even this week. Be honest about it. Ekitike and Alisson went off with injuries last night. What should you do if you own any of them? I mean, not many people own Alisson Becker because he is quite an expensive goalkeeper and he is quite injury prone, and it was inevitable. He gets injured every single season. I've never known a goalkeeper to get injured as much as Alisson Becker. It's really hard to believe. But it does make their reserve goalkeeper, whatever his name is, and I don't even know how to pronounce it, starts with an M, and good luck. Let me know in the comments. If someone can word that out for me in the comments so I know how to pronounce it, so that way I'm not going to butcher his name, but he should become an option. Ekitike did look like he went off with what looked like a suspected strained hamstring, muscle, etc. Now, if you've got him, you might be a little bit concerned because we probably won't find out until the press conferences on Friday, which will be just before the deadline. But he's definitely one to monitor, and potentially you might need to move him on if it's going to be out for like 3 or 4 weeks. It does also have ramifications because you would then think that Isaac's minutes should be a lot better moving forward as well. So that's also something to keep in mind. Who is the best asset to buy this week? This is a tough one. Next week, I know the answer. It's Jarrod Bowen next week, 100%. Jarrod Bowen next week in Game Week 8, provided obviously he doesn't get injured between now and then. But Game Week 7, it's really open to interpretation. And it just depends on how much you believe in Arsenal assets and whether you think they're value for money versus like someone else. I don't actually have a good answer for you this week with who I think is the best asset to buy. I think if you don't own Haaland, he's the best asset to buy. But if you already own him and you already own the likes of Semenyo, which over 50% of the game now own both of those players, I think realistically, I'd probably go with a Newcastle defender because I think they're good value for money, and I'd probably look at Dan Burn. If I had to give an honest answer on that, I'd say Dan Burn. Is it essential to have Haaland as he's running so hot? Yes, I think it is. I think if you're going without Haaland at the moment, and look, I didn't go without him last week, but I went without him as captain. And look, people have said that I got that wrong or whatever, but I still think it was exceptionally unlucky or lucky, depending on which way you want to look at it, that Haaland outscored Foden by 15 points. I still think that was exceptionally unlucky with how it went. But look, I think you've got to have him. Whether you want to captain him every single week, that's entirely up to you. But about 40% of the game are going to be captaining him again this week, I'd say. Against Brentford, who have the 4th worst defence in the league for XGC conceded per 90. So, yeah, it's probably going to be another big week for Haaland, let's be honest. Which Spurs team will show up this week? The answer to that is I've got absolutely no bloody clues. But because of the fact I've got the pigeon in my team, and every time I say that Spurs are crap, he does really well, and so do Spurs. So I'm going to say Spurs are going to be crap against Leeds, hoping for a Richarlison return in my own team. So I actually don't know. They went to Bodo Glimt last night, and they can consider themselves exceptionally lucky that they walked out of there with a draw, because Bodo Glimt dominated for a lot of that game. And it was a good comeback in the end by Spurs, I suppose, but I'm very unconvinced. I still think they're a crap football club. So hopefully that means a Richarlison return this week. Is it time to invest in the promoted teams now? The Cartel are not very hot on going to the promoted teams, but I think there is more than enough reason to sit there from the body of evidence I've seen for the first 6 game weeks and realise that we're not actually investing in the likes of Southampton, Leicester City and Ipswich Town. We're actually investing in teams that are highly likely to stay up in the Premier League this season. And for that reason, I don't think we can just keep on ignoring him. I think that would be foolish to do so at this point in time. So on to the defensive transfers, and who is the most transferred in this week? It's still Senesi, and look, he is unbelievable value. It's hard to believe that he's still under 20% ownership. He's going to continue to rise in price. He'll be above 5 million before long, but he's still going to be great value with what he offers. He literally averages an attacking return every 3 weeks. He averages DC points every single week. He's got a clean sheet every 2 weeks. How long will that continue? Who knows? But I'd suggest he's going to be continuing to be great value. Gay, comes in at number 2, and I don't mind that one. Crystal Palace's fixtures are a bit interesting, but their defence is solid, so there's no reason to sit there. And then Gabriel and Timber, I mean, it's not a surprise. The only surprise is that Calafiori's not in this list, because he has been starting every Premier League game as well, and he's even cheaper at 5.7. His minutes have been the least secure of the 3, so maybe that's why he doesn't make the list. Then it's Alderete, based on the fact he obviously scored and got that massive return last week. He has been getting those DC points every single week, so I think he's a fairly good transfer in. Van de Ven, I'm unsure why people are bringing him in. If I'm being brutally honest with you, I don't see too many Spurs clean sheets post this game week, and I know he scored in the Champions League again. I just don't think I'm not sure why he's being brought in. Other than for the Leeds game and a one-off week, I don't understand why. Then Dan Burn. I'm actually shocked that Dan Burn is not higher up this list. Very good underlying numbers for DC points. I mean, his attacking threat's not really there, but Newcastle's defence is elite like this season. So I'm surprised that Dan Burn is all the way down to number 7. For the most transferred out, I don't know why people are getting rid of Chalobah in their numbers. I know he got sent off, but it's only a 1-week suspension, and I was going to bench him anyway, so I'm actually holding him in my team because he's got Liverpool at home. I don't understand why people are selling him. It seems a bit weird to me, especially because the fixtures for Chelsea after that are pretty good. Ditto for Kukurea. You just bench him this week and play one of your other defenders. Surely you've got a bench that's good enough to field a player this week against Liverpool at home, you would think. Then Pedro Porro, I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense to Pedro Porro one. I don't know, he got benched again in the Champions League. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if Frank doesn't rate him or what's going on, but it's a bit odd. Virgil van Dijk, I'm unsure why people are selling him. If you're selling him to go for Gabriel, Virgil van Dijk gets much better DC points across the board. Yes, their clean sheet potential is nowhere near as good as Gabriel's, but I don't know. I just feel like it's a very much for muchness trade. Wan-Bissaka, how is he still in the most transferred out one? I thought everyone would have got rid of him by now, but he's still in there at number 5. Livramento, that makes sense. He's probably going to be out for a significant amount of time with a knee injury. And then Nate Nori, he's probably going to be back after the international break. So if you've held him this long, I'd just hold him an extra week, I think, and then just wait for him after the international break. Well, hopefully he'll be back in that starting lineup before long. And Man City's fixtures post the international break are not too bad either. So the midfield transfers, and no surprise, it's Semenyo at the top yet again. I mean, if you don't have him now, I don't know why. He just continues to rack up some sort of return every single week. I mean, he's definitely outperforming his underlying numbers, but he's still a great asset to own, and you don't have to worry about rotation or anything like that. My boy Anthony getting some love from not the Cartel, but pretty much everyone else, maybe they've finally discovered my channel and they're realizing that I cover the underpriced gems. He just looks great, and he just continues to return 4 goals and 1 assist now for the first 6 game weeks. I heard FPL Harry saying he basically doesn't think he can keep it up, but let's be honest, Burnley's fixtures have not been easy, mate. He's about to have some easier fixtures. There's every reason to believe that he will keep it up. I don't know what numbers you're saying that makes you think that he won't. He's looked unbelievably good for Burnley so far. Doku coming in at number 3 now. Let's Talk FPL talked about him, and it's not a surprise that they're starting to talk about these assets a couple of weeks after I discovered him. So let's be honest. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just taking the piss now. Hopefully you all enjoyed that little bit of a piss take. Doku, I think he'll be great. I actually think he'll be fantastic again. Obviously, it is concerning post the international break. There could be some fixture rotation, player rotation over those fixtures when they all come back. But I think for the next couple of weeks, he should be fine. Sarr is just going to be a great asset, provided he stays fit. He's definitely the best 6.5 midfielder in the game. Not a surprise that Ilian Ndiaye is completely gone from these lists. People are going to wake up to the fact that his numbers and himself as a footballer and the fact that he plays for Everton probably all count against him being an actually decent asset to own in the game. We'll dive into that a little bit further as well. Gravenberch, I'm still don't know why people are buying him. I know he got another assist on the weekend, but in reality that would look like a Maradona hand of God, except there was a Mo Salah hand of God. Yeah, I don't know. Nah, it probably was a Gravenberch assist, let's be honest. Enzo, he's just great. Without Cole Palmer in that team, Enzo Fernandez is going to be unbelievably good. He's definitely going to be on penalties as well. I can give it the hot tip. And I think, yeah, I wouldn't be buying him this week, though. Liverpool at home doesn't scream massive points returns. A bit like Gravenberch. Like, look at the fixture when you're buying these players. Not ideal. Saka comes in at number 7. Lots of people willing to take the risk there. I don't think I've seen enough from Saka to make me want the risk. And definitely to dive in prior to him playing in the Champions League tonight. So not sure why people are jumping the gun this early on him. Mo Salah, the most transferred out player in the game this week. It's not a surprise. If you're paying 14.5 million, you're getting the returns that he's dishing out. Even Bruno Fernandes is covering him with 2 missed penalties, so that's all you need to know about that. Cody Gakpo, yeah, your time was good for the first 2 weeks. It's been poor ever since, and we can't be tolerating that nonsense. Cole Palmer continues to be sold en masse. He's down to 10.3 million now. Bruno Fernandes comes in at number 4. Probably people getting sick of the fact that he's now literally cost my team and a lot of other teams 20 points this season. Not ideal. In fact, it's actually been more because the players that have won the penalties have obviously I've missed out on their points as well. Reinders comes in at number 5. Not sure about that one. People just knee-jerking there every week with Reinders by the looks of it. Grealish comes in at number 6. I mean, Grealish's numbers are significantly better than Ndiaye's. So if you're selling Grealish, why are you selling him and not Ndiaye? Because Ndiaye is a worse player than Grealish. Grealish literally creates everything for Everton in that team as well. And Kudos comes in at number 7. Again, it's one of those ones, people own a lot of them and they just transfer them out the moment they blank. And unfortunately, they all blanked last week, which is why they're obviously being transferred out. And then onto the forwards. And the forwards is always a really interesting one. As you can see there, actually, it's shocking. Like, so if you look at Mateta and Richarlison, they are the 5th most transferred in and 7th most transferred in respectively. And then they're the 5th most transferred out and the 7th most transferred out. Then you've got Gyökeres, the 2nd most transferred in, but the 4th most transferred out. Ekitike, the 6th most transferred in, and obviously people making moves too early in the piece have been cost again. And then he's obviously the 3rd most transferred out. He's probably going to go higher up on that list now that he is yellow flagged and highly likely to miss this game week. Isak's on there at the most transferred out. I mean, a lot of people probably regretting that move right now because of the fact that it does look like Ekitike is going to be injured, which means that Isak should be sweet to start this game week as well. So again, this is the advantage or non-advantage of moving early. You move early, you get the price rises, but you don't have the information. You move late, you can dodge these kind of bullets that happen during the course of midweek football. That's essentially what you're doing here. Haaland, it's not a surprise he is the most transferred in. The dude is just, he's the cyborg for a reason because he just keeps on scoring goals. And he's doing it for fun at the moment. He's probably going to get another couple tonight away at Monaco as well. Waldemata is an interesting one. I don't mind it, and he does feature in one of my drafts for this week from free hit to wildcard. One of them does have Waldemata in it. Thiago's going to be great value. I mean, when you're only paying $6 million and for a forward that's already scored 4 goals in 6 games, and they haven't had the easiest fixtures either, I just think it's a good move. I actually think that one is just a good move. And then Gyökeres, I'm just not sold. I don't think he should be the second most transferred in forward this week. Chris Wood, not a surprise that he is the second most transferred out forward. And where the hell is Jarrod Bowen? Are people just oblivious to this? It's because the Cartel don't rate Jarrod Bowen. I'm not sure. But he's the third top scoring forward in the entire game and he doesn't appear on the most transferred in list. I don't understand it. Why are people not going there? I know he's got Arsenal this week, but he's literally scored back-to-back 9 points. That's better than almost every forward out there except Erling Haaland. So I do not understand why the casual players are not picking Jarrod Bowen. He's definitely being overlooked. He's definitely being massively overlooked. So how many Arsenal players should you have? And that is the key. Lots of people, like the Cartel obviously last week in wildcard 6, went for the double Arsenal defence. But the real question is the Arsenal attackers. Are the Arsenal attackers worth it? There is no one over, I think it's 4.8 points per game on average across the board. I think Gyökeres is on 4. I think the highest is actually Declan Rice. It just happens to randomly be in that bus team I created. And he's done exceptionally well. He just keeps on getting the assists. He's got, I think, one or two DC contributions over the 6 games. I'm not sure about Arsenal's attack. They haven't looked overly good. I know they've had tough fixtures, right? So you would expect their attack to do not so well against those ones. And the easy fixture they had against Leeds, they smacked 5 past them. But I keep on coming back to the idea that Arteta roulette this year. And we're seeing so much squad rotation, particularly in that Arsenal forward line, that I can't sit there and argue for any one of their attackers that's actually going to be a minute's lock and whether they're actually going to return, just based on the way Arsenal play. A lot of their attacking returns have come from their defence. They are literally known as set-piece FC because of the fact that that is how they score a lot of their goals. So for that reason, do you really need to invest in the Arsenal attack? I think there's better attackers out there and you can just ignore them, if I'm being brutally honest. Now, is a punt on Eze or Saka worth it over Gyökeres? I have not been impressed with Victor Gyökeres. He scored 3 goals. One of them he didn't get any bonus. Obviously, he got the penalty and then a goal against Leeds, so he got the 3 bonus in that game. But other than that, I just have not been impressed by him at all. He looks slightly better against Newcastle on the weekend, but that's not saying much because I thought the first 5 games, relatively speaking, he's been horrible. I just think if you want an Arsenal attack, if you can go with Declan Rice. I don't know why. I just have a feeling he takes all those corners. They do seem to get a lot of their goals off corners and Rice is on them. And Rice's corners are always, they're so pinpoint accurate that he's going to continue to get an assists off them. So I don't know. I just have a sneaky suspicion Rice might be the best, and he's obviously one of the cheaper ones as well, outside of Zubimendi, but I wouldn't be recommending anyone go for him. Is Gabriel really the best defender to buy when his XGI per 90 is per 90 is only 0.09? That's his XGI. Now, I know the Cartel are all getting really frothy with themselves because of the fact that Gabriel obviously got that goal and he got a big 13-pointer. And congratulations for picking him last week. I mean, the luck involved with him scoring the 96th minute. We don't need to go into that, but well played. But why would you say that he's a better defender to buy when you've got Timber, who has 0.44 XGI per 90, and Calafiori, who has 0.36 XGI per 90? Now, they'll say that Gabriel's a lock. Is he, though? The League Cup, we saw Gabriel completely rotated out. And we saw Saliba completely rotated out against Newcastle. We will see their entire team get rotated. The thing I would say about Timber and Calafiori that I really like, they are obviously first choice in their position. So Calafiori at left back, Timber at right back through what we've seen in the early part of the season. And Arteta does like to play them, but he is not afraid to take them off between 60 and 70 minutes, which I actually think is what you want from an Arsenal defender. Because quite often, they only concede once when they generally concede. And if they're in front and they're playing their 1-0 game or their 2-0 game or whatever, they're highly likely to concede between minute 70 and minute 90 if they're going to concede at all. Now, if you've got a Timber or Calafiori, they may not be on the field by the time they concede, which means they'll have the clean sheet locked and all of a sudden you're laughing. Whereas Gabriel, if he plays, is going to play the entire game, which means he's got 90 minutes to endure that clean sheet. Now, I know that he racked up 16, 17 defensive contributions against Newcastle, but on average, he's well below that 10 mark. And I don't think he's going to be racking up. But Arsenal players just don't rack it up in general in the defence. So for that reason, I don't think he's actually the best defender to buy. But you guys make up your own decision. That's just my personal opinion. And Arteta roulette worries. You should be concerned about it, which is why I'm not so hot on him. And why at the moment, I have no plans to bring in any Arsenal players into my own team as things stand. So the impacts of Europe, well, we're seeing it yet again this week. And we've only seen the one night of the Champions League so far. So I'm recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Yes, before the second round of the second night of match day 2. So the first night of match day 2, we saw Alisson and Nketiah, already 2 players that have been injured this week. So that's not ideal at all. So again, this is unfortunately the problem with Europe and so many extra games. There is going to be a much higher risk of injuries continuously happening to the players that we own that are involved in this, which is one of the other reasons why I'm so hot on teams that are not in Europe, because they're not going to be overworked as much. They're going to have that free midweek. They're not going to be as fatigued. They're going to be playing more minutes on the weekend when you really want them for FPL and not having to worry about benchings or rotation or anything like that. Now, last night, there was also some random benchings. There was Salah on the bench for Liverpool. There was João Pedro on the bench for Chelsea. There was Pedro Porro on the bench for Tottenham. All I will say is expect more random benchings this weekend. As managers, and again, this always happens around the international break as well, there'll be a little niggle. And maybe a player will come off early, or they won't play this game week because of the fact that the managers don't want them going away on international duty because they want to give them some sort of rest because of the amount of games they've played. There's always gamemanship in the week before an international break. And I can give you the hot tip. There's going to be some weird little things happen with these clubs that are in European competition because they won't want their players being overplayed and going away and playing potentially another 180 minutes with their national teams in places that are miles away. So just keep that in mind. If you do have some of these players, it's probably likely to happen this week. Pep seems to have a settled lineup. Why is this? And will it continue? Now, at the start of the year, he brought in Jurgen Klopp's old assistant manager. And they've definitely changed the way that they've played. So Pep Guardiola's changed the way that Manchester City played. Now, no one else has commented on this. No other content creators commented on this. And someone said to me, Jerky's back. That's a problem for Phil Foden, Doku, etc., etc. Now, I actually think that Jurgen Klopp's assistant manager that coming in has not only helped him change the style of play, but I think it's also related to why Pep is playing a lot more of a settled lineup compared to what we've seen in past years, where we've had a lot of rotation, hip hazard roulette things going on, which is why we've seen, I think there was a stretch already this season of three games where he didn't make a single change to the lineup. Not a single change to the lineup. The only time I've seen mass rotation or whatever, or roulette, has been in the League Cup. So maybe, just maybe, there's a slight change there based on what the new assistant manager's saying about continuity with players getting match rhythm, etc., etc., and Pep coming around to the idea that maybe roulette is not the best idea. Or maybe it's just the fact that there's been so many injuries that he just hasn't had a chance to be able to do it. I don't know. But it's something to keep in mind, and maybe I'm ahead of the curve there, and maybe it's going to be a bit more settled from Pep this year. How will the likes of Palace and Forest cope long-term with Europe? I don't know. Crystal Palace players have already talked about feeling fatigued, etc., etc. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go, particularly with injuries that they don't have the deepest of squads. Forest are just a team that needs to be monitored in general. I don't know if Ange Balls is going to work there. So again, another of those ones that really does need paying attention to. So the Cartel's mistakes, let's get onto it, because this really just, it nailed it on the head, right? So I love watching FPL Raptor. I actually find him quite insightful, and I think his ability to talk about players is really good. The question I've got, Raptor, is why did you pick Ilian Ndiaye in your wildcard? In fact, I want to know why Harry picked him on wildcard as well. Because today, I watched Raptor's video, and I'll openly admit that I watch all their videos just to see what they're talking about and stuff. And a lot of the stuff I don't agree with, because a lot of the stuff I think, and I can explain a lot of these mistakes, is because they use FPL Review or FPL Solio, and that's how they all come to the same conclusions. Whereas I don't. I literally watch the games and I make up my mind based off that and the actual underlying data that's written on the FPL website. And I go, I don't think that backs up what I'm saying. So NDIAYE is not even in the top 20 players for XG this season at all. So why did they go for him in game week 6? When they've seen the data, they know that there's better data even in Everton's own team for Jack Grealish, expected goal data, and Beto, expected goal data. They're both in the top 20, FYI. Why did they pick Kylian NDIAYE? I don't know, other than the fact that FPL Review told him so. That's all I can put it down to. Look, he does have some half-decent numbers for DC contributions, but I think they've even openly admitted it this week that picking midfielders for DC points has got low upside compared to ones that actually get attacking returns consistently. So that's probably something to keep in mind. Also, I think they've realised that NDIAYE just doesn't offer much. And Everton's penalties just are pretty non-existent. So we've had none through the first 6 game weeks. They only had 3 last season. I just think that they've actually realised this week that maybe they've made an error on that one. And I've been saying it all along that Kylian NDIAYE is actually not that good. Now, the next one I want to ask. Now, Harry obviously picked Richards in his wildcard draft, which was the one defender different to what Raptor picked. I think he picked a 4 million one from memory off the top of my head. Why did they go for Anderson? Why? They also, again, they have the data in front of them. They would know that last season, Fulham only kept 6 clean sheets for the entire year. They know that at the moment, Fulham have only kept 1 clean sheet for the first 6 game weeks. And with their next 3 fixtures being against teams that are highly likely to score, that's going to be 1 clean sheet from the first 9 games, which is puts him on track for 4 clean sheets for the season. Now, yes, I will appreciate he does rack up the defensive contributions. He's racked up 5 in 6 games, I believe it is now. Or is it 4 in 6 games? I can't remember. But you could literally get a Leeds or a Sunderland defender at 4 million that's done exactly the same, but they've both kept multiple clean sheets, which is why their defenders have actually outscored Anderson. So again, why are they picking players that just don't make that much sense? Or promoting them religiously like they're the best players in the game when they're not. Anderson's well down the list of the top scoring defenders, FYI. And why did they not rate Jarrod Bowen over Victor Gyökeres and João Pedro? Now, I said last week, and I stand by it, that Jarrod Bowen will be in the top 3 scoring forwards of the game. I would not even be surprised if he finished in the top 2. He's literally been feeding off scraps and he's scrounged 3 goals already this season for West Ham. Now with Nuno at the helm, I dare say that the numbers will improve defensively, but also the chances that they will create will get better for Jarrod Bowen. And we've already seen the connection between Juve's left foot of a wand crossing to Jarrod Bowen. There is no way that Jarrod Bowen is... I just don't understand why so many people are overlooking him in the numbers. It's something the Cartel have definitely got horribly wrong, and I, so far, have got 100% right, bar the first 2 weeks where it was a little bit disappointing. But I think that was just more down to West Ham being disappointing than anything else. And Jarrod Bowen really should be on 4 goals. There was one moment where he probably should have scored that he didn't. So, yeah. And then, why do they still not believe in Anthony? Now, Anthony's got 4 goals, 1 assist for the first 6 game weeks, and Burnley have not had easy fixtures to begin with. They've played Liverpool, they've played a couple of other teams that are escaping my head. They played Man United, not an easy, they're not a hard team. But his data is backing up. He's literally performing to what you'd expect from his data that he's putting up. So I don't know why they don't like him that much. But again, they need to get on board. The promoted teams are significantly better than what we're used to. I just think that they're relying too heavily on the analytics of AI algorithms rather than actually using what they're really good at. And they are really good at telling information and stuff, but they're massively misreading these blokes. And I think that they've made some honest mistakes. It's a bit like me making a mistake about Phil Foden and Mbumo last week. I mean, that was exceptionally unlucky, but I feel like this week it's going to come back, and I'm going to be preaching about it over the international break. Let's be honest. So on to my best wildcard draft for this week. And look, I've reflected on what I did wrong on mine, and there's obviously some alterations I would make if I was to go on wildcard this week. And yeah, there's some players, obviously, you could sit there and say, you're like, why have you picked them or whatever? So I do think that if I had my time again this week, I'd probably ditch all my Man United assets and I'd probably be a bit more diversified. Now, I really do rate Declan Rice, which is why I've obviously got him in there. I've got Anthony Gordon in as well because I think Newcastle's fixtures for the foreseeable future actually look really good, and I think he'll be fantastic. Enzo's obviously got a difficult fixture this week, but Liverpool have shown that they're not keeping clean sheets. There's no reason to think that he actually can't return. I've actually gone with double Arsenal defence, but I've not gone with Raya because I think the Pope offers better value than Raya, 0.6 million cheaper, and he's more likely to get save points, is my honest opinion on that. So, and I've actually gone with the upside. Like Jurriën Timber's underlying data is next level. Now, I've literally put Gabriel in there basically because the masses are buying him, not more so the fact that I don't really believe in him. But I think there was a world where I originally had Calafiori and Timber there, but then I left even more money in the bank. I didn't know what to do with it. This team value is only 98.6 as well, by the way. So I've got Senesi and Semenyo. I've also got Petrovic sitting on the bench because at some point you would like to think that you are bench boosting, and I still think that Petrovic Pope is a much better combo than going for a 5.5 and a 4 million goalkeeper, especially when you want to go or get round to that time when you want to play a bench boost. Anthony definitely has to make it. His numbers are too hard to ignore at this point if you are on wildcard. I think he just has to be the cheap midfielder. He just is nailed. He's just going to be great, and he keeps on putting up good numbers. Semenyo's a lock. You've just got to cover him. Him and Haaland, you've just got to cover. They're the two players that I think in the game you've just got to have in your team, because otherwise you're just asking to be destroyed, really, is the honest answer. Jarrod Bowen as well. I know that's not the best fixture, but if there's someone that's going to score against him this week, it's going to be Jarrod Bowen. He does look incredible. Juve also makes the cut. I think that Nuno's going to tighten West Ham up defensively, which is going to increase his allure, because if he keeps on getting attacking returns at the rate he's going, when they add clean sheets, he's going to be in the bonus almost every single week if he's getting an assist. So here's another one that I really like the look of that I would have kept if I wildcarded him this week compared to last week. And then Richards is a no-brainer. He's the 4.5 million defender you want that's just got the DC points. Plays for a good defense. He's way better than Anderson. It's pretty much a no-brainer in terms of those two. And yeah, I think that's what I would go with if I was looking at a wildcard draft for game week 7. And let's finish off with a free hit draft for game week 7. And look, this one's significantly different to obviously the wildcard one, but we're going with literally the exact same defense. So we've got Pope in goal. We've got Senesi at home to Fulham. We've got Jurriën Timber and Gabriel at home to West Ham United. In the midfield, we're going with Semenyo because literally everyone's going to have him, and I think it's daft to take him on at this point. We've gone with Sucker as a bit of a 1 week kind of a punt. Hope that he actually performs, but obviously he could get injured tonight and then he's not an option. Then we've gone with the triple city attack. Now, the reason why is because Brentford's underlying numbers are horrible. They've conceded the 4th most XGC in the game so far, the first 6 game weeks. And I think Man City are going to tear them apart just with the way Brentford plays. So I think that Doku, Foden and Haaland should all be great. Now, I'm backing in my boy Phil Foden to go big this week. So again, I'm going to pick him as captain. He's got a fantastic record at the G-Tech Stadium as well, with a brace there just last season, even in the midst of probably his worst campaign for Man City. And he went to the G-Tech and scored a brace last season. And I remember that because I had him in my team for that week. Then we've got Strand Larson, Brighton at home. They should score against Brighton, I would suggest. And Wolves potentially might pick up their first win there if they get a little bit lucky. I've gone with Šeško because if you're on free hit, you go for a couple of punts. And I think that Šeško's actually got probably the best fixture outside of Haaland this week in terms of... you could go for Ollie Watkins, I suppose. But I didn't have the money in order to get Ollie Watkins in if I went for Saka. I mean, you could drop Saka down to someone else and bring Ollie Watkins instead of Strand Larson or Šeško if you wanted, because obviously this draft comes in at 99.3 and there was 0.2 in the bank. And this is using a team that had low team value, so that's why I wanted to put together on this. And then on the bench, you just got 4 blokes that you don't really need. So Darlow and Rodon at home to Tottenham there, both 4 million players. King, obviously... realistically, you're not going to need him either away at Bournemouth. And then Richards away at Everton. I mean, maybe you could have him in front. Maybe he should be in front of King on the bench. But either way, yeah, I think that's what I'd look at for a free hit draft this week, a 3-4-3. You could go a 3-5-2 if you wanted to, but I think it's better to go a 3-4-3 this week and hope for the best. So that brings me to the end of my top transfer tips for game week 7. Hopefully you've enjoyed that, and hopefully it's given you a bit of an insight as to some of the mistakes that are being promoted by other content creators. And it's not to say that they're no good and you shouldn't watch them. I do think you should watch them. I'm not saying you should just watch me, but I like to think that I offer something different. And I still don't understand why they promote some players over others. Like as I talked about today, Jurriën Timber and Calafiori, way better attacking data, and yet they put him below Gabriel. They also don't show my boys Anthony and that as much love as I do. I'm definitely one of those people that sits there. I enjoy taking on the differential player, and I think that's how I enjoy playing FPL. So if you like that, please smash a like, leave us a comment, and if you haven't already, think about pressing that subscribe button as well. We're on the track to 4K, baby. Let's keep it going. I'll be back tomorrow with my team selection. I'm also doing a live UCL watch along later today after I've been on the FPL Pubcast. So if you want some more of me, you know what to do. Hit that up. Look for the scheduled stream, and I'll be in there. And that being said, have a good evening, folks. That's been FPL D-Unit.